Okay, great. We're good. Okay, thank you. Good morning. My name is Chris Caius. I'm chairman of the Administration Committee for Kane County. I'd like to call this meeting to order on Wednesday, May 10th, 2023 at 10:15 a.m. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Urban's here.
Davist, Ford,
Board present.
Gums. Miss Gums. Juby,
Should we hear?
Caius,
Vice President.
Pepe,
Happy here.
Kira. You have a quorum?
Great, thank you.
Too.
Thank you. And thank you for being here.
Chris, can you use your mic?
Never. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's all right. Thanks. May I have a motion and a second for the approval of minutes from April 12th, 2023?
Ford moves.
Ford
Berman
moves.
second.
Berman seconds. Any comments, changes, questions? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
Should be I.
Caius.
Guys, yes. I think our monthly financial reports are on file. Is there any public comment? Anyone in person, online, or in writing? Hearing none, seeing none? Move right along, then I will move to item 6, Executive Director's Report. Our Executive Director, Mr. Roger Fonstock, would you like to proceed?
Okay, good morning. This is Roger Fonstock with IT and Building Management. I have a presentation I'm going to pull up here real quick to share some things with you. Hopefully that'll display. Let's see if we get. Okay. Blair's moving it for us. You should see it online and it should be, yeah, there we go. Let me get this. Okay. All right. Everybody can see that. Okay. So a few of the things that we've been still working on, which I think are actually kind of exciting things in both IT and building management, we've been working on a new software product, and I'm going to show you a little bit about that in a minute in a kind of a show and tell. We're working on a Contract Safe, which is basically an online software as a service to manage all of the contracts and legal documents that are required for IT and building management. This will give us a data repository and also a document library. And it does some really neat messaging and notification services for all of the contracts that IT and building management use. And we're looking at expanding that into other areas. We're also adding Mill Creek SSA and GIS and some other areas, and talking with purchasing. The purchasing department about their use of the product and some of the other departments. So that's been an ongoing project for both of us, both departments, IT and building management this month. We're continuing to go through hiring. We have a couple of vacancies, I think, in both IT and building management. We've had a little bit of turnover, a couple positions in the past month, but nothing to be alarmed about. The rest of the projects, I don't think have changed much. We're in the process of doing the facility master plan. Jason Dwyer is here with us today. He's going to give us a brief update. And then one of the other major projects that's going to be underway very soon is the actual demolition of Fabian. All the paperwork is basically done. We're just scheduling, getting the contractors out. So that'll actually start very soon. I know we've provided notice to anybody that has anything over at Fabian and any of the properties being demolished, that they need to get out of the buildings and get their equipment or supplies, whatever it is, removed. So we're pretty much ready for that to take off next. But that's kind of the activities that we have going on right now. We also are finalizing a couple of architectural plans for the sheriff's ADA ramp project. And then we also have a bid going out for renovations for the pre-arrest diversion for the state's attorney's office. That's actually an office renovation for it's got pre-arrest, and I think the other one is just the basic diversion, like trial diversion, case management. Is that?
Just a question. Where's
Madam
that?
Chair,
Thank you, sir. Where's what building?
So they're in the circuit clerk's office at the Kane County Branch Court in St. Charles. There's a space that the circuit clerk is offering to the state's attorney's office to be renovated. And they have some grant money from, I believe it's the state and federal funding. So we're working with them to get the plans out to bid right now for that work. We haven't awarded it. Yeah.
And they'll be relocated then from the Yellow House to the circuit
So
clerk.
I was talking with State's Attorney Jamie Mosser, and I think that question's getting more complicated by the day. And we're going to be working with them on where does the pre-arrest diversion team go? I know they have some staffing changes, and they're talking about some of the coordination with other departments that needs to happen. I think namely, they were talking about coordination with Michael Isaacson and the health department even. So there's some different angles to that and who's going to be leading the pre-arrest and the diversion programs that Jamie's working on. So we're following Jamie. We're trying to figure out how we can help. But that's a ongoing process right now. We don't have the final kind of plan from them. So
Okay.
one of the other
Roger.
things.
Roger,
Yes, sir.
how
Deputy?
much space is there and where is it?
The space is relatively small at the branch court. It is what currently is their viewing area for records. It's a small glass space adjacent to the clerk's office between kind of court security and the clerk's office. There's a small like area there. There's probably, I'm going to say 1,000 square feet type of thing. It's not real big. It's actually smaller than this room for certain. Yeah. So
That's not big.
but that area is gonna be, I think it's about 6 offices that would go into that space, 5 or 6 offices, and a little bit of an open kind of waiting area for people to come into. But we've been working on the plan set with Healy Bender for that, with both Circuit Clerk Barrero and staff from Jamie Mosser's office. Let's see. The other items up here that I think we're still working with the Third Street and the old courthouse and some feasibility plans for those spaces and buildings. I think we have the old courthouse or the Third Street courthouse plan coming back as a rendering and some additional items that we'd asked for about how we deal with CASA and Child Advocacy Center. They have a couple different buildings that they operate out of now. And this was kind of a conceptual plan of how would you organize that if you were to deal with the current buildings and if you're familiar with the sheriff's annex or the old annex building behind there, that's not, it's somewhat being used, but basically in a place where it probably is long overdue for demolition, I would say, but we'll get to that eventually with the master planning. Let's see, other items that we have up there. Again, the demolition work is starting at Fabian. We've also, at yesterday's board meeting, finalized the agreement with CASA for the extension of their lease. And we're going to be getting that processed. But in the course of doing that, there was space that was allocated to the state's attorney, civil state's attorney, to relocate to some available space in a couple of rooms in the Third Street Courthouse. And there's going to be a discussion about moving furniture, buying furniture, and if there's any improvements that need to be made to make that work. We haven't necessarily committed to anything, but I know that the overall plan was to try and keep CASA or to maintain that lease and then work with the state's attorney's office to give them the additional space that they need. Chief Judge Hall and State's Attorney Mosser both have been working on that with Jim from CASA. And now we're getting the kind of initial thoughts and plans of where they would like to move people. Some of that involves furniture. Some of it are, can we put a wall here? Can we do certain things? So we're trying to get a handle on that right now, but just the kind of the domino effect of, CASA's staying, state's attorney wants to move into some available court space. They don't want to accept it as a courtroom. They want to have some different furniture and some renovations done. So we'll be bringing that back soon as well. Let's see, next on this is we're going to jump into some examples. So this is the show and tell part. So I talked to Chairman Caius about the IT and building management, how we handle maintenance requests. So what you're seeing is the homepage for the county's intranet. So the intranet is an internal website. It's not shown to the public. It's just internal. It has a lot of different information for HR, especially policies and different forms. But in the main page, you'll see the everything help desk and FSI, which is the building management maintenance request. It's located in the middle. And there's an opportunity on here to create a help desk ticket for IT. And then there's a maintenance request for building management maintenance requests. And this was something that when we started reorganizing building management that we wanted to use to try to measure what we're doing in the building maintenance. We'd been doing it in IT for some time, but you can get a variety of reports out of this, which we're going to start using to report and measure how we handle service requests. So things like how many tickets did we receive for the month? What types of tickets were there? How many tickets per technician did we have? How many tickets do we have for the year? So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to track. Another thing we're trying to track would be preventative maintenance. So you have, 100 filters that you need to change. They're scheduled in certain months. Have you changed them all? And if not, we can follow up with the technicians to make sure that they're following the preventative maintenance schedule. We also have like an aging report where we tell them how old the tickets are. If they're beyond 10 days of age, we actually escalate them and try to get somebody to look into it. One of the service managers or directors would look at it. But this is kind of the entry point for the help desk. So the IT help desk has a form that looks like this. This is the email form, but you can access the IT help desk all of these different ways. You can call 83800. That's the phone that rings in the back for the help desk. You can email ehelpdesk@kingcountyil.gov. That'll go in as a ticket and you'll get a response. You can fill out this, which is the short form, and it has a drop down. You can pick which department and just write out in text what your problem is. All of these end up going into the ticket system and get assigned to a person to respond to your request. It's our way of tracking it and also quantifying what people are doing. The last one up, or the fourth option, is to log in with an account. So your Windows ID, people can log in and they'll get a full featured help desk system, and they can see all of their tickets, the history, and they can do searches and things like that. We also have an after hours number, so people can, off hours, they can call the on-call people. We provide a sheet that has the phone numbers on it, and we give cards to the managers, and they can call us after 4:30, which would be off hours, and then up till we start, which I think we have people starting as early as about 7:00 in the morning. But our normal hours are 8:30 to 4:30 for the help desk phone. And the last item is just this: how we are measuring service, whether or not we're completing the tickets. Are the tickets getting old? How much are we putting on individuals? Are we not able to get to all of the requests in a timely manner? So this is what one of the reports looked like. And I thought this was interesting because it just shows you the months, this last month. So this would be April's ticket request. So IT alone had 891 tickets. And you can see most of these are in that hardware, services, and software area. And then you can see the breakdown in a graph. We can generate countless numbers of graphs, but this just kind of shows you the breakdown. One of the more interesting things that I look at is under the software and the hardware, we have things that are called categories or category options. And a category is it hardware? Is it software? It's basically those in that pie chart. So the next step is you can drill down, and within the software category, I can pick individual software companies that we use. And what we're looking for is one particular software causing us more tickets than any other. And that tells us what our focus should be on. Is there a problem with a particular software, with a particular piece of hardware. Sometimes we'll find out that people across several departments are having the exact same experience with the software, and it's systemic. It's not, an single incident. So that's the type of information that we're extracting from the ticket requests. And as you can see, with 891 requests, that's actually a light month. We're usually around 13,000 requests, 12,000, 13,000 requests a year.
1,000.
Yeah. So that's somebody's number. Okay. Let's see. So the next one is how we handle building work requests, similar process. You go from that web.kane landing page, you can call 43400. You can email BLD help desk. There's a short form. This is their version of the short form in FSI. It's a little bit different form, but we try to make it as simple as possible. We don't want to overcomplicate or overburden somebody trying to just get their request in. This goes into the request system, and then it'll get assigned to somebody. Similar to the IT help desk, people can log into the system. I think primarily we're getting them through this form or email. But they can log in and they can see all the history of their requests, and they can check on the status of their requests. They also, both systems do email messaging. So they'll email message you a ticket number and a link to your request. We also, for buildings, have the same office hours number. So when they call into that office hours number, they get a greeting, and it asks them, with a person that answers from the call center, if they want a building issue or an IT issue, and then they can actually state their name and contact information. And then that answering service gets a hold of off hours or the on-call building management or IT people. Again, this is, more about measuring service for building management and IT. This is an example of assets and preventative maintenance, or the procedure schedules. I think this is interesting, and we're going to be going through this some more, but it, just counts up assets, 1,237 assets that they're doing preventative maintenance on. And they have 817 schedules, and they have, about 420 items in this list that don't have schedules right now that we probably need to work on getting in place. And then it shows you scheduled versus unscheduled and total. So by category. But I think, once we get this working the way we want, you should be able to see, all of the assets listed. And then if they have a schedule for that asset, and then things that don't have a schedule, and these are getting assigned to technicians so that they can perform them on the regular schedule. And then you ultimately would be able to see whether or not the actual maintenance requests are being completed for the preventative parts. I think that's going to help dramatically once we get started, more developed with the preventative maintenance schedules. We'll be able to track it. This is a overview of work orders. I printed this one out because I thought it, showed a picture of what has been going on. I think we still have some room to work on getting all of the requests into the system. What happens a lot of times is the guys are out, the ladies are out in the field, people approach them and ask them to do something, and they do it. I do that myself. Lots of people in IT do that. But this shows you kind of the breakdown of work orders by type. And what you'll see is service requests online, and it's a reactive request. These have been consistently in the 300 requests per month. And then you see preventative maintenance requests in April. You can see where they really kicked in and started doing PMs. I'm assuming that has to do with the change in weather, but we're getting ready for summer probably.
Did you get him turn the heat up here? Mr. Davis, do you have a question?
Am I right? Just to clarify, going back
Yeah.
to the averaging 1,000+ calls a month,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Were those IT calls, or is that a combination of
It's
IT
just
and
IT.
building? That was
That's
just IT.
This is just building management right here. This
Okay.
would be building management. So
Separate number of
yeah,
calls.
358 web requests. And I had a total on there at one time, but it was more than, if you total up all this column, I think I cut it off on the page, but
More.
yeah, if you total
Out
up
of your-
April, it's about 1,000.
Out of your
plus.
1,000 calls a month for IT.
How many are Mark?
Yeah,
Oh.
well, the tech maladroit of, of his
Yeah.
life, me, Roger, how do you do this? How many are legit and how many of them make you guys scratch your head or laugh when you're done? Like, oh my
I-
God, how many times do we have to tell these people?
Yeah. So we describe
Calls
that
come
as
from
a,
board members?
if you go back to the IT, the IT chart, when you see this thing here that says services,
Yeah.
that's people asking us questions about how to use something or how to work on something or how something works.
Yeah, I know, it's me.
It's not so what we determined is that the software was working, the hardware was working, the person wasn't. So,
Operator error.
Yeah,
This is not a forum for confessions, by the
yeah.
way. If we can move this
Yeah,
along.
Mr. Davist, are you asking for times when the problem is between the seat and the keyboard?
It's a,
We used to,
I could be a portion of that yellow there. I'm,
yeah, we used to have one called training. And that training one was, hey, can we develop? And this is something that I would like to get back to, was we used to do more with training the users that operating new software. Now we use an online service from Pluralsight and Skill Sets. And we advertise it through HR and we make it available to people. It's a library of courses that people can take. But what we found is that if you don't structure it and make them take it,
Mhm.
people tend to not just voluntarily go sign up and take a class, but we buy it for our own people to take new skills. If they want to pick up a new skill, we have a license for skill sets for the county that they can go take a class learning, advanced Excel, whatever they need to improve their skill sets.
Hablo español.
I think Mr. Chairman Henry wanted to
Oh,
make a
Mr.
comment.
Thompson, you,
Sorry, good morning. Henry Thompson from Building Management. I just wanted to bring some clarity on why an asset wouldn't have a schedule. We
Okay.
do have inventory of items that we don't maintain. For example, AEDs in all the buildings. We have a inventory of them, but we don't maintain them. Nicole in the sheriff's office maintains those. But
Okay.
we always sometimes get asked how many we have, so we keep inventory of them. So that's why
Yeah.
you might see an asset that doesn't have a schedule.
There are some, yeah. There's a couple that we need to maybe look at too, that I don't know if it's a schedule that's rolled up into one of the other schedules, because it looks like they have an asset, but I don't see a schedule for it, but it's probably done in another preventative maintenance routine.
Let's hope.
So we might need to change it a little bit.
little adjustment in the,
Yeah, but
Data.
it's good. We're starting to track numbers. We can see what's going on.
very
And
exciting.
yeah, I'm gonna be working with them more on what types of numbers we want to generate. I'd like to see like a month by month, 15-month view of what we're doing. So you can kind of see year over, it's like when you get your NICOR bill and you can see where you were at last year when you're in the same season. And the same thing happens with IT. Like when we go into election season, you'll see our requests just change drastically. Everything starts going through, a clerk request or the county clerk and elections. This is actually breakdown by technician or by maintenance tech. And there, again, some of these, I know that, the numbers are light. They're not tracking their requests in the system. And some of these people are no longer with us, but they had history, so it pulled them. I know Bill Klumpke is no longer working with us. He retired, but he hasn't had any recent tickets, but that's
But
because
Charles
he's not
looks like
here.
a slacker.
Yeah, Charles, hopefully he's assigning tickets to people. I hope so. If he's doing the
Oh, he's
ticket,
not here to defend it.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
when he fixes the thing in the office, we're shorthanded that day. Oh. Or if I fix it. So that's the two different types of service requests we have of e-help desk for IT. It's everything help desk. And we have FSI, which is the service desk for building management. And these are just kind of some examples of reports. There are tons of reports. You can slice it and dice it a million ways. We're working on more email related reports. So every, first day of the month, we want last month's tickets kind of presented to us in this reporting format, so we can keep track of where we're at, especially the aging. So if we have a ticket that's right now in IT, anything that's over 10 days old, I get it and Charles gets it. We want to know why it's over 10 days old. Then I know Chris Hemeseth and John, they get tickets that are over, I think, 5 days. So they're tracking it internally, and then Charles and I get it if it's like, I think, over 10 days or something like that. So the last thing that I wanted to do some show and tell on is the contract safe So this is the front screen of what we purchased as Contract Safe and Contract Management. And Contract Safe, the contract for doing this is licensed by the number of agreements that you put in there. So we initially bought a license to manage 1,000 contracts and agreements, which is more than we have for IT and building management. But that's where we're going to start. And as you grow the number of contracts, you would add licensing. I'm going to switch over to the screen where let's see, where I have it up and running. So this is, oops, Blair, you're gonna have to drag over another screen, I think, the website for Contract Safe. Let me see, hang on. Maybe I shared the wrong thing. Let me go back. Sorry.
He's got me confused.
I'm gonna stop sharing and share it again. Yeah, I shared the wrong one. It's okay, we're there. Okay, so this is the main web page for Contract Safe, and what I did was I just logged into my screen for this. So this is what you see when you log in, and it looks like kind of like folders, like a normal Microsoft environment with folders, but this is telling you that there's a group of 5 people that manage these contracts. There's 4 contracts. There's 3 people managing capital. There's 1 contract, 10 contracts in IT. Mill Creek has 13. Uncategorized is kind of like where you bring a contract in to start. So you bring it in uncategorized, and then you fill out an index to work with it. On the right, you actually have recent activity. It actually tracks and logs everything. So you can see I was entering in on the first cell tower agreement for Fabian. And that you also see user activity and deletions. And then down here, it shows you key dates. And this is the part that we wanted for what we deal with in purchasing and finance and the contracts is when do these things expire? And when do we want to be notified of the expiration? So you have upcoming dates that are coming due. We have something in 4 months with Mill Creek for a contract with Eternally Green. And we have another one with Mill Creek for snow removal in 5 months. We have another one, here for landscaping. That's actually just landscaping. But these are termination dates and when is the contract up for renewal. If you go back up, let's see if I can get back up to the top. You can actually look at this from a dashboard view, or you can look at the whole pile of contracts. The neat thing is that you have filters to filter. So we have 28 that are already in there and we're adding more every week. If you want to, you can do it based on any of these categories. You can filter. So I like to use the tags. So under the tags, I can say, show me anything related to Fabian campus and just check that. And it'll pull up the contracts that are just related to Fabian campus. So when we get the Fabian demolition project contract back from the signature process, it'll go up into this and you'll be able to see it. This is the cell tower agreement for the tower located at Fabian. If you open it, it'll show you the index and the actual agreement. It provides a copy of that for you. And you can share this with anybody internally or externally in the county. You can also send it to someone as a packaged contract. So if you need to forward it to somebody, you can look for it, find it, send it. It has a little send button over here. You can save it, you can view it. This is the index. It's just Kane County and Pinnacle Towers. The value for the contract's $84,150. That's how much money we get from it over the term. And then this is the termination date. It's coming up in June 30th of 2024. This is a copy of the contract and the resolution. We've been putting the full packet up there so you can see all the history of everything that was done with it. You get this little bell here. If you click on that, it tells you to let you know before the event, 180 days, and then every 28 days, tell me that this is due and give me a copy of the contract when you email it to me. And then who do you email it to? And right now we have it, going to basically just 4 people, but we're going to be adding more to that. I think purchasing and others are going to want to know.
Madam Chair, question.
When you first shared this application with me, I thought necessary, needed and wanted. But now I would like to perhaps investigate perhaps more on the IT side and working with purchasing and HR. If we are hiring other contracts, can we track those as
Yes.
well? But I think it's just critically important that we're able to manage all of that electronically so that our department heads and potential fellow board members can find out where these contracts are, if we need to extend them, and where all the paperwork is in one centralized location.
So that is the main reason that we were doing this. We've been working with purchasing. They maintain folders and spreadsheets, and they have a lot of information about the different contracts. And I talked with Karen Keitzman from purchasing, and we're like, we're going to do this for IT and building management. And she was very interested. She attended the initial meetings and all of that. We're going to get her onboarded as well, so that she can use you can use the folder structure, and you can do security by folder. So every office or department could have their own folder, and it would be just them and maybe purchasing in there. But you could have purchasing, auditor, anybody have access to the whole pile of folders. And I think that's kind of where we're going, is that if we upload them all there, somebody can have the ability to read through them, state's attorney, and they could have them on their time when they want to look at it. They don't have to call us and say, can you send one? One of the problems we're having is the contracts are becoming so large, 200 pages, and to email them around becomes very cumbersome and very difficult. It's hard to get them out and distributed. Going back again, if I go back into IT, this is a good one to look at. So one of the first things that I did was I went back and took all the Tyler New World contracts. These are going back to 2006. These are still active. And if we ask to modify something with the finance system, it's an amendment to that 2006 agreement. And every time we want to amend it, the state's attorney asks us to get a copy of that. So I have it, Charles has it, a couple of us, Brooke have the contract, and we go dig that thing out and bring it in and provide it to them. And then they give us an amendment to add some licenses to the contract, but we have to maintain that in perpetuity. I mean, it has to go on forever. And if I'm not here or somebody else, that they need that to buy more licensing.
Continuity is really
Yeah.
important. Provides
Um,
continuity.
so if you want to see the original contract, you can go open that up. And it shows you, who this was with. It was a New World contract at the time, and now it's with Tyler. But this is an interesting agreement because you can see what you paid for the finance system in 2006. It's in there. Let's see if I can find it for you. There's the schedule. So we bought financial management, and let's see. You can actually pull this out to a larger screen to look at it. Oops. I don't know if it took that. I didn't do it picture in picture. Anyway,
It's okay.
well, the total, just so you have an idea, the total software license was $482,000 in 2006.
There it is.
Yeah. So in today's dollars, that's probably a couple $1,000,000. But anyway, I know that what other counties have paid for a finance system, but it's in the contract. We've added a lot since we purchased this originally. And then if you go down to the bottom, you can have amendments. We're starting to add amendments for other pieces that went into it, and it'll link the amendments to the master agreement. So you know that the master agreement spawned these other agreements, and you can tell which ones are related or connected. And I think that'll be very helpful because sometimes we get, a contract that's existed for basically 17 years or more, and you're referring back to it to add an amendment. And some people don't realize the original article was different than what you think it is now. But I think this is going to be a great product for us. So we don't have to, go through too much more. You can also sort by tags. So if there's tags and you don't know what they are, you can say, show me tags, or you can say, show me counterparties. These are the people that you signed agreements with. So these are all, so here's an agreement with Shodine Group. You have an agreement with Shodine Group. This is the lease of the office space for Mill Creek. And it shows you that the contract value was $50,742. It's a agreement that expires in 2025. So every year we pay them a certain amount and it expires in 2025. And we'll be tracking that contract, and when it comes due, you'll see alerts coming off of this notification here. And it'll send notices to Bill Myers, the coordinator, but it's also sending them to Charles and Brooke. So anyway, I just wanted to present this. We're going to continue to add all building management, IT, and Mill Creek GIS. All four of those will go in there, and we will not come near the 1,000 contract license. So I know there's plenty of overhead that we can expand and let other people use it. The next group in that we're talking with is purchasing. We're going to add them and make sure they understand what we have in there and what they want to use it for. And then we would approach other probably departments and then potentially offices. I have talked, I think, with Tom Rickert from KDOT briefly, and I talked to a couple of other departments about it, that if they want to use it, it really can be managed within their department, and purchasing would have access, or however they want to do it. It actually has really good granular security. So
That's great.
anybody have any questions? I think I'll
Sure.
end there.
Madam Juby first.
Okay. I don't want to be prematurely giddy with delight, but is this going to reduce the potential of how many emergency purchase affidavits we get, because we are now going to be given advance notice of termination dates?
For those issues, yes, there's things
What
that.
could,
What's that?
it could reduce the amount?
It will, if there's something that didn't get renewed because they missed the term date on a
Okay.
contract. If it's, the air conditioner broke,
It's okay. I'll
probably
take
won't
baby
change that
steps.
part. Yeah.
I'll take baby
But
steps.
this will definitely, it should curtail, hey, a contract expired and we didn't renew it.
Okay.
And a lot of times, that does happen, and that's, crossing wires between purchasing and a department. If there wasn't a notice that this contract didn't get renewed, who does the notice and how do you keep track of it? This will be that answer.
I was going to bring that up. I thought maybe there might be a member or two in here that
Yeah.
didn't like emergency purchases.
It maybe doesn't like those. I don't know who that would be.
Yeah, it doesn't fix things happening.
No, I
that-
don't. I don't.
Yeah, the unforeseen things that happen, but
Did you
it
get
would
your-
help with that.
He's on the committee. So let him
Oh,
go first.
okay, Mr. Tepe.
Yes, Roger, this looked like a lot like an application that might have been built on OneNote.
Okay. It is not, it's custom, I mean, it's a custom software as a
Custom.
service. We've tried doing, and we do have what I would call a project or team sites with SharePoint that we use to manage internally. But what we were finding is that it didn't have a workflow that was easy to follow. So people would do it in different ways. The nice thing about this is that if you want to add a contract, this is another feature I didn't go through. You just click add contract. And let's see if it'll spin back through here. Oh, it might be popping a different page. Let's see. Okay. So it'll pop up a page like this, and you'll notice it goes into uncategorized first. I got this thing in my way here now. Let's see. You can't see it, but I can. So let's see, floating panel. Okay. So when you look at the uncategorized, you can pick the folder you want to drop it in. Or if you add it to uncategorized, it just means it's not finished yet. We don't have that kind of capability in the SharePoint. And then the other thing is you upload the file. You can do it any of these different ways. But you can drag and drop into this folder. The other thing that you can do is you can do this via email, and you can actually link it to this address. So if you have a contract and you don't have the ability to go to this website, or it's not convenient, you can simply email it to that and it'll show up in uncategorized. So
Okay.
it goes straight in.
How many people do you anticipate using this?
Right now within IT and building management, we have about 6 or 8 people probably. And then I think countywide, you could potentially have 40 people using it, but it's not licensed per user. We could add anybody that wants an account to be on there. It's just the overhead of managing the accounts. There's no licensing for it. It's just per contract that you put in. And if you update the contract and you archive the old one, the archived ones don't count against your count. It's just the active. And there's so when you open up an agreement, let's see if there's one that I can pull quickly. So there's this checkbox for fully executed and active. And you can actually sort by that as well. But if you take it inactive, then it no longer counts towards your 1,000 count. So. Any other?
Mr.
questions?
Berman?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Berman here. I think this is fantastic. We've come a long way. I just wondered if you had a license agreement with IBM from the punch card data processing equipment I sold them in 1965.
1965 to the county.
Not yet.
I don't know who would have that, honestly. I can tell you that, yeah, the contracts that go back before my time,
All right.
it's hard to find stuff that, yeah.
That's
it's-
deep in the archive.
That's 22 years ago,
That was a few years ago.
before we had, yeah.
You had to write the code yourself back then.
It comes back to you though. Eventually, it's like somebody will ask.
Yeah.
2 days after you delete it.
Yeah.
Did you have a question, Mr. Roth?
Yes, I did. Roger, is this a portal or is it an actual app that is installed on?
No, this is just a web custom. It's from contract software. You hit
Right.
this customer login
Okay,
and you log
so you're
in.
going to their portal. then,
Yes,
right?
it's software as a
that-
service entirely.
Okay, right.
Yes.
And then can you customize, like, you said you're rolling out to purchasing. So if
Yes.
they wanted to do looking by PO number and stuff like that?
Yeah, it has in the settings in here, you can build custom workflows. If I can get
Okay.
the mouse to do it, I'm like
Yeah.
hovering over. It's got the Zoom controls on here, so I'm like trying to move the Zoom controls around. But this is the custom, and you can do custom fields and forms
Okay,
and folders and tags, and you can set it. Actually, that's a feature that we haven't really delved into, but it does AI. And it'll actually read the contract and try to find the information off the contract to populate the index.
okay,
So if you email it in to uncategorized, it will actually try to fill out the index and categorize it for you. And then it asks you to accept all of it.
Right.
It's got a review process, but that process has been kind of like a 50-50
Right, right.
proposition. A lot of our contracts are non-standard.
Okay.
So
and then if you move it to archive, do you lose the visibility to look, to see those or, using the tool?
you would see them in the archives. You would not see them in your active
Wouldn't be able to
contracts.
update it or anything once it goes.
Yeah, it just
up?
goes into archive and sits. It can be associated with an existing contract as an archive, though.
Okay, can you bring it back?
It's a little wonky for me here.
You absolutely can.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you're in the dashboard view, this is one of the nice features. So like if you had one in here where you said, oh, I deleted that contract, you can actually look at it, or you can, I believe from the deletions pile, you can undelete it even.
Is there limited on who can delete?
So are you sure you want to restore?
Right.
It's in the permission set. There's different gradations of permissions. And right now, everybody that's in there, I think, is an admin, so they can do
Okay.
it. But as we roll this out, I envision people just being an admin for their folder.
Right.
They won't be able to see it across the, and if people say, well, I want my contracts in there, but I don't want other people looking at them. That's fine. We can work with that, but for our purposes, it's pretty much going to be read capability. We don't care
Right,
if you read
right,
our
right.
contracts.
But I mean, one concern is, from a fraud point of view, someone going in and deleting something because they don't want.
Yeah, they'd have to be someone with the authority from that department or office. Like
Okay.
I said, I mean, ours is basically myself, Henry, Charles, and Brooke.
Right, right.
There's 4 of us and Mark Smith. So,
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay.
but that's
Very
it
exciting.
for the show and tell. I thought this would be helpful, and we're gonna keep putting more contracts in. The other thing that's nice is that it has some neat reporting features. You can actually report out the contract features that you want to pull up in a report, and it'll give you a listing of those, and you can export the contracts with them. So
Great for those early morning staff meetings that you have to have a lot of data for.
When somebody calls and asks you for a copy of it, it should be a lot easier to get it. That's the
Great.
part we're trying to get to
Perfect.
too. Okay,
Sounds great. Yeah, I thought this
Pretty
would
cool
be
stuff, Raj.
really
good stuff.
good to report that all the progress we're making in building management. Our new combined executive director, building management and IT. So, great. Any other questions for Roger on
Thank you.
your report then?
Yes, that's my report. We still have Jason Dwyer
Would
from
you
White.
introduce Mr. Dwyer? Nice to see you.
So we have
Jason,
Jason
again.
Dwyer, who's from White and Company. He's been working on our facility master plan. We also have Heidi Files, who's our project manager for this, with us today. I'll turn it over to Jason.
Thanks. Thanks for being here, Jason. Sorry for the delay.
Oh, no worries. Good morning, everyone. Jason Dwyer with White and Company. No formal presentation today. I thought I would just give you a status update, as I said I would every month. Since our last admin committee meeting, right after that meeting in April, we did the visioning session, and many of you know we did the summary of outcomes from that at the last committee of the whole meeting. More recently, last week, we moved out of step one visioning into step two of our process for the scenario planning. And we conducted meetings last week with stakeholder groups from the government side and the judicial side. So that really includes many of the key department heads and elected office holders in each of those groups. And the purpose of that is really to do a little bit deeper dive into some of the specific issues that are impacting each of the different departments to help us evaluate and develop scenarios for solutions. So it was a really good first step meeting. On the government side, some good discussion about a lot of the challenges that we know about currently in terms of public service access being distributed against across a couple buildings on the campus. A little more discussion about continued desire for satellite presence for public service. Currently, County Clerk has a satellite presence in Aurora and Elgin, and also kind of tested a notion of maybe a consolidation of satellite functions. So that right now, the county has a number of different satellite facilities, the health department, court services, leased space for county clerk. So some of this is just to help us consolidate thinking around different possible solutions to addressing the various needs. So good discussion there. Also took a deeper dive here in terms of some of the existing building challenges relative to code and handicapped accessibility and so forth. And one of the things that came out of that was we thought maybe it would be helpful to do a little more, almost like a show and tell for the whole of the board to really better understand some of the issues on the campus right now. I think that those that I think are working in the facilities day in and day out have a real clear understanding of what kind of challenges there are, or when the public is wandering around the campus trying to find where to go and so forth. I think that you see that from time to time. We thought maybe just doing a presentation that maybe through a series of pictures highlights some specific issues, because a lot of the challenges for the government side here on the campus have to do with physical constraints of the existing building. So I think we'll more to come on it, but we thought maybe doing just a quick summary of that at maybe the next committee of the whole might be helpful for all the board members to get a better picture of kind of what the issues are. So more to come on that. And then on the judicial side, good discussion about their objectives for consolidating core functions at the judicial center site, kind of reconfirming those details. Also exploring a little bit more best uses of Third Street Courthouse and shifting things around. A lot of that really focused on operational efficiency. So I think the judiciary's got a really strong focus on how to best consolidate functions just to be as efficient as they can in terms of their operation. Also maintaining satellite presence as well for them. So like I say, a lot of that is just kind of the more working level discussions on how best to support the individual office holders and how they interact with the public. So we're going to continue to do that. We've actually got another meeting scheduled with the key we're calling it the steering group stakeholders at the end of the month on the 31st. And then our next step for this committee will be next month. And our objective there is to present, will be a kind of a midpoint of our scenario planning. So we're going to present work in progress in terms of the different options that are being explored, a little bit around kind of some of the items that are sort of rising to the top in terms of highest priority. And, you know, sharing that with the committee here, looking for some feedback, and if there's a need to redirect anywhere, it'll give the committee an opportunity to give us a little bit more guidance on steps forward. And then we've talked about before, the end of the scenario planning phase is going to be around August at this committee, and we're thinking maybe even a committee of the whole in August. Because at that point, we're going to want to present in greater detail all of the different scenarios that are being studied, and get guidance back from the board as to if there's a scenario that should be eliminated, or what are the best solutions, so we can then fine tune that, put dollar budgets and schedules together to wrap up the master plan. So that's kind of where we're at right now on path forward. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Jason?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Ford?
thank you. I'm just looking forward for this report also, because the one thing that he's talking about, which he's putting very soft and light, is taking a look at these buildings and how they react to as far as handicap accessibilities and other issues. So I applaud you for finding the right words to make it sound real nice and soft, but I'm not that good. So,
But you're short, right? I mean,
hey,
You'll
it's
keep it
if you take a look at it, it's a pretty bad case of accessibility. It's pretty pathetic in my terms, especially bathroom facilities and stuff. The other thing I want to remind everybody is that we're making an initiative for economic development. And the one thing to keep in mind as we move forward with all this is that I'm not going to go back to 1964, but years ago, I took a class and some seminar about government and strategy and economic development. And one mistake that government has made throughout the years is either purchasing or having a lot of buildings, especially in high commercial areas. It does a damage to the economic status of that government, especially when they're in a downtown or high business traffic areas. So if you look at what's happening in Aurora right now, I was there when the mayor had the state of a city, and the number of dollars that has been turned around by turning over a lot of the buildings that was occupied or had in the city's hands. So that we need to keep in mind as we get the reports about facilities and how they're being used and things like that.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? That's good work. It's a lot of talking, a lot of communications. We expect to continue that communications through all of the stakeholders. So if you have anything that you're concerned about, make sure that your input is, you feel like your input's taken.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Jason. Okay, and then on to our regularly scheduled program of building management. I think we're ready for that. Can I have a motion and a second authorizing an agreement with Waste Management for refuse removal? Moved by Ford, second by
Drumsel second.
second.
Okay.
Then Mr. Fonstock, you'll,
We're gonna have Henry Thompson from
Oh.
Building Management take care of these, I think.
Henry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Henry Thompson, Building Management. This first resolution is to enter an agreement with Waste Management for the refuse for Kane County. Building Management worked with purchasing to put this out to bid. And it is a budget item for $60,000, and we're recommending approval.
Up to 60. Okay. Any questions for Henry? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
yes.
Juby,
Maybe I,
Tyus.
Caius, yes. Item B, resolution, I'd like a motion and a second for authorization of an agreement with HOK for architectural and electrical engineering services for lighting and Kane County, at the Kane County Judicial Campus. Moved
Berman
by
move.
Berman, second by
Board.
Ford. Henry again.
Yes, this second resolution is to authorize an agreement with HOK to do a lighting study for the Judicial Center and the Juvenile Justice Center. Building Management's found that there's desperate need of repair for the exterior lighting. Then it will also do an interior lighting survey. We worked with Environmental, Jody and her team. She gave us an inventory of lighting for the interior. So thank you, Jody and your team. This is a budget item for 220 for them to do the study and then help us put the bid set out for the remainder of the work to be completed.
Okay.
And Building Management's recommending approval.
Any questions for Mr. Thompson? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Board, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
UBI.
Caius.
Caius, yes. All right, moving on to information technology. I see, and Charles is not here, so you want to handle this, Roger?
Got the first one. You want to do a motion on that?
Oh,
one?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank
Get
you.
that going.
I need a cue every once in a while.
Sure.
Hey, may I have a motion and second to authorize renewal of the data center co-location lease and fees? Moved by
Davis moves.
Berman,
Davis,
second.
Berman, second.
This is Roger from IT Building and Management, ITD and Building Management, sorry. This resolution is for a agreement for data center space that we use at New Continuum Data Center. It's SBA Communications. It's a data center located just off of Fabian in the DuPage Tech Park, West Chicago. We use this for basically all of our data center computing power and cabinets. I think we have about 7 cabinets and other related services over there. This was done through a competitive process. I think it's been about maybe 8 years ago, but we're just asking to renew the agreement. They're going to a year-to-year agreement, so it's 5% increase over last year, and it's $130,000 for data center co-location services. And it's a budgeted expense, and we're recommending approval.
All right, any questions? I think we're just a really small part of that building over there, right?
Yeah, 7 cabinets and maybe a couple 100,000 square feet.
Yeah,
So-
the hunt for it. Okay. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Board, yes.
Gums,
Gums, yes.
Juby,
UBI.
Caius.
Caius, yes. May I have a motion and second authorizing contract extension for outdoor wireless installation services, microwave network infrastructure. Moved by
Berman,
Berman, second by
Board.
Ford.
Okay, this is Roger again. This is a resolution to basically extend our agreement with Scientel Solutions and Orbis Solutions for a 12-month term. It's not to exceed 150,000 per fiscal year. It's a budgeted expense across multiple funds. We use this to support outdoor wireless bridging connections between buildings that are not on our fiber network. And this is primarily used when we need to build a new connection, or we need to maintain or support or replace the equipment on existing connections. So it's $150,000 and it's a budgeted expense. We recommend approval.
That's a 2-year, 150 or?
It is a 12-month term, not to exceed 150,000. And it says per fiscal year, so it's per year for
Okay.
12 months.
All right, great. Mr. Tepe?
Yeah, Roger, is this equipment that we buy, or do they
Yes.
put the equipment on the buildings and have the microwave?
So we buy the equipment and they would we would buy it through them and they would install and align the equipment. Requires, typically tower climbers or people that are doing the actual elevated work.
And is this primary connection we have between the buildings?
Some of them are their primary connections. A good example would be, we have radio equipment that is connecting, I can't remember what street it is, the rural road west of Judicial Center that the Forest Preserve. has a couple buildings. We have some radio equipment that we use to talk to them. And then we have equipment that talks between this location, I think, and the sheriff's radio tower. And there's at one time there was I don't know if that we still use it. There was a connection between the radio tower and KDOT. And then there was a connection between the radio tower and the health department. So they were basically like backup line of sight connections. And then we're also looking at using this potentially for some of the VHF radio connections that Kingcom uses. So that's kind of the nature of it.
We provide the equipment.
We buy it through them and we own it.
And
So they
then-
resell like Cambium, and we use Ubiquity and Cambium, and I think there's maybe one other radio provider that we use through them. So they'll specify the type of equipment, and they'll actually create a proposal to install the equipment and bring it up and get it running for us. So if we had an emergency where we need to build a radio bridge between two locations, they can actually specify the equipment, procure it, go out and install it for us.
Is this for equipment or is this for services?
It's both. It's both.
Mr. Kais. I had a
Mr. Roth.
I had a
yes.
quick question. So Roger, you were saying it's for some buildings, it's the only connection we have
Yes.
to them. And so like for internet access, for example.
Yep.
And then for the other buildings, it's for a contingency if for some reason the fiber goes down.
Yes, we would use them if we suddenly had an outage and needed to build something that nobody can provide for us.
So it's not an automatic switchover, or it would be
Some are automatic setup, configured routing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And that would be like the forest preserves natural
Forest
resource
Reserve's
building.
kind of standalone, and it made no sense to
Actually.
build a connection out to them for their services. And so we put in Ubiquity radios to the rooftop of the sheriff's building. So
Great. Okay, any other questions?
I think in that situation, we actually bought the radios separate and they provided the services too.
Not microwave.
Huh?
Not microwave for EM.
They were not microwave, they were 5 gigahertz. So if you want to get into that, certain
Never mind, never
frequencies have rain fade, which means if it rains, you lose the signal, and 5.8 gigahertz doesn't do that. So and we didn't license it because it's short distance.
I'm
So-
gonna second guess.
It's not licensed. It's unlicensed 5.8 gigahertz.
Okay,
Good try.
all right. Well, we have motion second. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Gavist,
Yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Grums, yes.
Juby,
Maybe I,
Caius.
Caius, yes. Item C, may I have a motion and second to authorize a contract for the Information Technologies Department for uninterruptible power supply, UPS system replacements with installation. Moved by
Davis moves.
Davis. Ford will second.
So the resolution you have in front of you is for 2 battery systems that we run. One is located at the Government Center in Building B. The other is at the Judicial Center. These 2 battery systems are the power systems as you switch between the commercial power and the generator. So in the interim, while the generator is starting, you can't drop a 1200 amp building service. And so we basically put these UPSs in to support all of the computer equipment and phones in the event of a brownout or a transfer to generator power. Once the generator power takes over, we're not running the building off of batteries. It's a short period of time while we transfer power to the generator or back from the generator to the commercial provider. This will basically replace both of the existing UPS systems. The UPS systems that we have are end of life. We're having trouble getting parts for them through the maintenance provider, and they recommended that we replace them. These were original equipment in around 2005 when we purchased them. We have replaced the batteries in them on a 4 or 5 year cycle, I think 3 times. And they're telling us that we should replace the control boards and the entire system. So we're recommending a replacement. This was a budgeted expense. It's $129,050. It was bid through procurement, through purchasing. We received 5 bids and the lowest responsible bidder was Nationwide Power Solutions. And they actually have been a service provider for the current systems as well. So they're very familiar with it. We're recommending approval of it.
Okay, questions, Ms. Juby?
I have a question.
Sure.
It's more about process. So I noticed that there's an RFP in here, but there's no contract. When can we expect to see that contract?
So there's a request for proposals. It should be handled through the purchasing department as far as the contract from the bid. They'll have a contract to sign that comes out of purchasing. So I
Then where
think
does it go from there?
it goes to, well, we'll get a copy of the resolution from the board approving it. There's a vet sheet that goes to the civil state's attorney. The civil state's attorney gets the vet sheet, the copy of the signed resolution. They get a copy of the proposal. They get a copy of the bid synopsis from purchasing. All of that goes through the civil state's attorney. When they get done with it, they'll send it back to us saying that it's okay to sign it. Then we take it to Madam Chairman and she signs it.
So it doesn't have to come back before the board
It goes to the full county board. This
as a signed contract or as a
No, no, no,
contract that needs
no.
to be signed?
as a contract that needs to be
Okay,
signed.
so we'll see the contract before the county board?
I believe it's already been provided in there.
I didn't see the contract.
It's
in
in
here.
it's in the packet. It should be.
I have the RFP.
This was printed out of the packet. This is from Nationwide Power.
I have their proposal. I just don't have the contract that comes from
That
the
is their
proposal.
contract. It's a contract.
Oh, so
proposal
it's-
to agreement.
So it's common for us to have the RFP as standard for the
That's a
contract.
purchasing.
Okay,
It's the signature on it.
that's all I needed to know. Thank you. I'm good.
That's fine.
Good. Okay, any other questions? Then roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gums, yes.
Juby,
Should be I.
Caius.
Caius, yes. Motion passes.
Wow.
Ever have to sleep or staff?
Then on to Mill Creek SSA. Is there any other additional report in that? No, that would have been in the master. So just the resolution?
Yes, just one
Okay,
resolution.
then I'll accept a motion for authorizing the extension for 2022-2023 Mill Creek SSA Parkway Tree and Stump Removal Services and additional funds from 2022. Moved by
Gums will move it.
Gums, second by
Rosedale.
Berman.
So this is a resolution for Mill Creek SSA. In 2022, we had authorized $30,000 in the final invoicing in 2022. They had 21,308 in additional tree service, grinding and replacing trees. We had run a resolution through for HGTS asking for $60,000 sometime early part of this fiscal year. And we were advised by the state's attorney's office to only approve of the exact amount, which was $21,308 for 2022. And then the additional $30,000 for 2023. So we're doing that. We already had approval for the original $60,000 when we were trying to estimate how far it was going to go beyond the initial authorization. So it is a budgeted expense. The funds are available. It's in the Mill Creek SSA. This covers the amount that they went over the initial purchase of trees and stumps that they were removing, the 21,308, plus it's $30,000 authorized for HGTS for this current fiscal year. And it's a budgeted expense that we're recommending approval.
Okay, any questions? Roll call, please. Oh, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just, it's maybe I've just heard it so many times, but it seems, is this a big problem out there with the trees having to replace?
The parkway trees, we have probably, I'm gonna guess 2,000 of them. So somewhere in 1 to 2 trees per house in the parkway. And they probably replaced 100 of them last year.
Wow, is this due to salt or?
Anything from salt to some other care issue, disease.
Mm.
We went through 100 last year, which was a big year. We went through actually more than 100. That's why it's more than what was originally planned for the year. But there's sufficient funds in the Mill Creek Fund to handle it.
Right.
It's just we didn't realize how many trees were actually being done by the contractor. When they got done, we're finding out how many they were planning to do and what was actually executed. And the state's attorney asked us to go and get a resolution authorizing the additional money. So we asked for 30,000 for this year, plus making up the amount from last year. And they wanted us to get exactly the dollar amount.
No, I understand that part. I was just
So,
curious about how
that's
bad the
fine.
problem was. So I don't know.
Yeah,
if
it is,
something else-
it is a variety of causes, but I know there's a list of people waiting for trees this year. We do the trees in the fall and it's like the most cost effective time frame. I think
Yes,
the
it
tree
is.
cost is like somewhere between $300 to $600, depending on what all they're doing in the parkway. They have to remove it, grind it, plant the new tree if they have to excavate any dirt to get the clay out.
Repair the grass.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
And what's their fiscal year, the same as ours?
Same as ours.
But this is 2023, fiscal year
Yes,
2023.
we're in 2023.
Aren't we halfway through 2023?
Well, we don't start doing the trees till fall, so we're in good shape.
Okay. All right.
Fall is the best time to plant trees and bushes.
Not arguing that, just okay. So then, any other questions?
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Davis,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Ford, yes.
Gums,
Grums, yes.
Juby,
GBI.
Tyus.
Yes. To new business, no new business.
Just, I have an item that,
There is a new business. Mr.
it
Ford.
may not be.
Skip vehicles? No vehicles?
No vehicles.
Want to do
No
vehicles?
I'm sorry, I missed at the bottom. No vehicles. No, don't believe so.
All right.
Thank you
So,
for pointing that out.
Just a question about going to our fiber and access. And I think almost every building that we have fiber to it. And the one thing I want to bring up is our location, which is a mixed location, but our workforce development is there in Batavia. Is there any way to get fiber to that?
So workforce development right now is on a Comcast connection in downtown Batavia.
Okay.
The county typically does not construct fiber into municipalities. We stick to county roads and right of ways or county property.
Right.
So we would approach Batavia and ask them if they want to get into either leasing or allowing us to use their fiber to get downtown. I know they are at the school district office right off of Willow or Pine. I don't remember which street it's off of, but we would still have construction from that building over to our building. At the time, we didn't think that their office had the volume of work that would justify building a dedicated connection. So the cost effective thing was to lease a Comcast connection monthly, and they're special revenue, so they pay for the connection. It doesn't come out of the general fund. So that's what we recommended to Scott Berger at the time. We could look at, construction costs. The construction cost for that last mile probably would make it cost prohibitive in the city. Just because we'd either have to build it or the city would have to build it. And you're talking about, I'm going to say somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000 worth of construction to get an internet connection that we pay probably $150 a month for.
Okay.
So
No, I'll just curious to see whether or not it's.
there's some cost
effective.
benefit that we do when we look at it and what the demand is for the connection, how much serve. The other thing is, can we get adequate service from somebody else without doing the construction? I know recently Brooke Roth from our office, Brooke was working on getting the Comcast agreements all upgraded to like 500 meg contracts.
Mhm.
And I think that that's going to take care of some of the issues that we've seen at some of the satellite offices. I mean, they're going to have a pretty substantial service at that point. I don't know if we would get much better with fiber at that point.
All right, I was curious to see whether or not it's
Sure.
more cost effective to do it.
Yep.
You just don't trust Comcast.
I won't say.
Yeah, I mean, there's a time and a place, and I think we try to look at the cost, over a 5-year period. And if it costs more to lease it or contract it than to build it, we would say build it.
That was my,
Okay. All right.
all right. Thank you.
Other than that, no new business, no other new business.
Um,
Mr. Davist.
just quickly in broad strokes. Ms. Juby brought to my attention an item that might help get rid of more emergency procurement situations.
Sure.
Shocker.
We need to tell, we haven't even had a chance to tell Roger about it, but purchasing is interested, KDOT is interested, and I think we'll be able to borrow some language from DuPage, our neighbors who have already done this, and give us some flexibility on kind of overcoming some supply chain thing on problems with vehicles. So just, I wanted to at least give you an official heads up that this.
Heads up
just
on
come
what
up.
now?
Hmm?
And what was the subject that we're working with?
Procurement on vehicles.
Yeah.
Oh, vehicles. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because sometimes we get hung up, they're not available and then you try to move
Have been with the
quickly.
market
and
lately, yeah.
It turns into an emergency procurement kind of thing and
We can tell you between the state statute and the county code, there's no other way to do it. So, I mean,
might be.
I know the way they're talking about doing it. You can do that. It doesn't change the state law or the county code. So, if you can't find a vehicle where you awarded it, what do you do? Their language basically doesn't call it an emergency purchase affidavit. It says we'll make an exception to the rules for you to make this one-time purchase under these circumstances. Well, what does the emergency purchase affidavit do? It allows you to make a one-time purchase under these special circumstances.
Without the word
basically
emergency.
the same
yeah.
thing. They just don't call it that.
Does it streamline the process a little bit or does it help? That's as far into it as I've gotten. but
I'm assuming they have a similar piece of paperwork where you fill out saying that you tried to go through the traditional means, tried to go through the traditional avenues and the vehicles aren't available. Therefore, you can go do this at a competitive price. That it's probably similar. It might have a little better subject language to it because the emergency purchase affidavit is pretty much free form. You just fill it out and it's an affidavit saying why you're buying something. So and why it's an emergency.
You can look into it, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine to look into it. I don't know.
Just
I
a
don't
little
know
heads
where
up.
it'll take
is
us,
all.
but Yeah,
Maybe it helps.
5 minutes of your time.
it's good.
We'll check it out. That's a request from the committee.
Sure.
Thank you.
More paper.
Any old business? May I have a motion and second to place the reports on file? Moved by
Davis moves.
Davist,
Gums will second.
Dum second. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Yes.
Davist,
Davis, yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Gum,
Gums, yes.
Juby.
Yeah.
Bias.
Yes, yes. Gratefully, no executive session today. And
move
then
we
that would
adjourn.
be, we'll take a motion to adjourn. That would be Mr. Davist,
Gums will second.
seconded by Gums. And that would be an all in favor. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye.